Coming up on Network Africa. U.S. lifts decade-long economic sanctions against Liberia as President Barack Obama praised the country's commitment to democracy. UN unanimously adopts resolution on Burundi as it condemns human rights abuses and violence in the country.
Will those in favour of the draft resolution contained in document S/2015/865 please raise their hand.
And on our Africa Tech segment today, find out how tech startups can source investors for their businesses. Hello and welcome to Network Africa. I am Adeshewa Josh. Sanctions against former Liberia President Charles Taylor and his allies have been lifted by the U.S. President Barack Obama. President Obama scrapped sanctions implemented 11 years ago against Charles Taylor on Thursday. Explaining why the U.S. has decided to take this step, President Obama said it's because of Liberia's commitment to democracy since the end of the civil war in 2003. While Liberia will greatly benefit from the lifting of this ban, it is not clear what value it will add to former President Charles Taylor, who is still serving his 50-year sentence in a maximum security prison in the United Kingdom for a series of war crimes. Well, President Obama said that Taylor's imprisonment meant that sanctions were no longer necessary. He said that he and his allies now had a diminished ability to undermine Liberia's progress. Now, let's take you back in time just a little bit to when Charles Taylor sought asylum in Nigeria in August 11, 2003. Well, that was after he stepped down as president and handed over power to Vice President Moses Blah in Liberia. Well, while in Nigeria, he was interviewed by the chairman CEO of Channels Television, Mr. John Momo, on the allegations laid on him during the war. He denied any wrongdoing.
I led a civil revolt in Liberia as leader of the NPFL for 7 years. There are no incidents in Liberia of any cutting off of limbs in Liberia throughout the 7 years of the Liberian Civil War. And I led the largest rebel faction. Following the war, I was elected by 85% of the population. What does that tell you? It tells you that I conducted myself in line with international law. Liberians who have never voted by 85% giving me their vote following an election, a war that I led. Impossible. The problem in Sierra Leone is this, because I think there are some tribal incidents in Sierra Leone that have to do the Mendes, the Timilins. It's a tribal situation. It's a tribal situation. Doesn't make any sense. I never ordered, there's not one Liberian soldier arrested in Sierra Leone that said that he was sent there on my orders. There's not one intelligence officer. There's not one security officer. How does one conduct a war in which in his own country it is humane, in line with international law, he's elected by 85%, and someone says, well, he conducted a war across the border with a less than $100 million national budget. How does one conduct a war? Or does someone need a scapegoat? Or are we saying that the essence of Western help to Africa is when you grab an African leader based on your perception and you disgrace him and humiliate him? Is this an Africa policy? Come on. West Africans are capable of determining if Charles Taylor did or didn't do something wrong in Sierra Leone. I mean, so the whole perception that, well, he did this for money. Well, there's a Security Council resolution passed that my quote-unquote assets should be frozen because I earned billions from Sierra Leone. I welcome the resolution. Because all of the accusations center on the fact that I was involved in Sierra Leone for financial gains. Well,
for the diamond trade.
For the diamond trade.
Were you?
No. But the way that this is going to be tested, because there's a Security Council resolution that calls for the freezing of quote-unquote monies and assets, I welcome it, and I hope they do the search diligently. And when they search and find, I'll put it to 10 years, go back on my record for 10 years. If they find any foreign bank account in any country on the planet with monies for me, or they find properties as they have alleged, then I stand guilty.
Well, former President Charles Taylor was recaptured and taken into custody by border guards in northern Nigeria on March the 29th, 2006. Now, let's give you more facts about Charles Taylor coming up on your screen right now. He was born on the 28th of January, 1948. His education, he emigrated to the United States to study in 1972 at the Bentley College, Massachusetts. He had a BA in economics in 1977. In 1980, he returned to Liberia and joined the administration of Samuel Doe. In May 1983, he fled to the United States after Doe accused him of corruption and stealing from the Liberian government. And in 1984, he was arrested in Boston, Massachusetts. In 1985, authorities believe he crossed into Mexico and headed to Libya after he escaped from jail, where Colonel Muammar Gaddafi gave him asylum. In 1989, while in Libya, Taylor formed the militia group National Patriotic Front of Liberia. And in July 19th, 1997, Taylor is elected president of Liberia in a special election. In 2000, rebels in Liberia began to struggle against Taylor's government, and in June the 4th, 2003, Taylor is indicted for 17 counts of crimes by a UN court sitting in Sierra Leone. And in June 2003, President George W. Bush made a statement asking Taylor to step down for the good of the Liberian people. On August the 7th, 2003, Taylor submits his letter of resignation. On August 11th, 2003, he stepped down as president, handed over power to Vice President Moses Blah, and left for Nigeria, where he was granted asylum. On December the 4th, 2003, Interpol puts out a global arrest warrant for Taylor. On March the 16th, 2003, he was indicted. The indictment against Taylor is amended and reduced to 11 counts. On March the 29th, 2006, Taylor is recaptured and taken into custody by border guards in Nigeria. On March the 29th, 2006, Taylor arrives at a special court for Sierra Leone and taken into custody on war crimes charges. Well, that's in 2006. On April the 3rd, Taylor appears at a UN-backed tribunal in Sierra Leone and pleads not guilty to 11 war crimes charges. In 2006, also on June the 30th, Taylor is transferred to The Hague in Netherlands for trial. And finally, on January the 7th, 2008, Taylor appeared in court again as his war crimes trial resumes. In June 2010, the prosecution, which had arrested him in 2009, is allowed to reopen for the testimony of model Naomi Campbell and actress Mia Farrow regarding blood diamonds that Taylor may have given Campbell in 1997. On April the 26th, 2012, Taylor is found guilty of aiding and abetting rebels who raped, killed, and mutilated civilians in neighboring Sierra Leone. Of course, in May 2012, Taylor is sentenced to 50 years in prison. And let's fast forward to this day, November the 12th, 2015, U.S. President Barack Obama scrapped sanctions implemented 11 years ago against Charles Taylor, but of course, he remains in prison. Let's take a short break on Network Africa, and when we come back, political and religious leaders in Central African Republic seek to reassure the Vatican on the Pope's safety ahead of the November visit to the country.